After dozens of attempts since war broke out in the region last fall, Houthi rebels in western Yemen finally made good on their efforts to attack Israel directly a few days ago. On July 19th, just before dawn, an Iranian-manufactured suicide drone hit an oceanfront apartment building, killing one man and wounding 10 other civilians. The attack marks the first time the Houthis have penetrated the defenses that surround major Israeli cities. The apartment hit by the drone is just a block from the U.S. Embassy branch office, which was the actual embassy until it was moved to Jerusalem in 2018. The video capturing the moment of impact shows the drone on an eastbound heading over the Mediterranean. Israeli officials had no comment how the Houthis were able to penetrate the layers of defense, including the Iron Dome system that has proved very effective in countering rockets and missiles fired from Gaza, Lebanon, and the West Bank, as well as those launched from Iran a few months ago. In this case, it appears Israeli forces were caught off guard. One official admitted to what he described as human error that prevented the normal detection systems from being activated. The Israeli military official said the initial evidence suggested the drone was launched from Yemen, but Israel was investigating a range of possibilities. After the drone hit, the Houthis immediately claimed responsibility, adding that they had employed a new type of drone, quote, capable of bypassing the enemy's interception systems and undetectable by radars, end quote. As Yemeni civilians celebrated in the streets of the capital, Sana'a, Houthi officials warned that more strikes on Israel would follow. The Houthi attack occurred against a backdrop of U.S. concern that steps taken against the rebel group in western Yemen have been ineffective in stopping the threat they pose against regional governments willing to cooperate with the West, and more specifically, commercial shipping transiting the Red Sea. The Wall Street Journal just reported that General Eric Kurilla, the head of U.S. Central Command that has military responsibility for the Middle East, recently advised Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin in a classified letter that military operations, including Operation Prosperity Guardian, designed to protect shipping through the Red Sea, are failing. One U.S. official who commented to the Wall Street Journal on the condition of anonymity said, quote, "If you tell the military to reestablish freedom of navigation and then you tell them to only be defensive, it's not going to work." In the letter, General Kurilla calls for a stepped-up whole-of-government effort against the Houthis, employing economic, diplomatic, and potentially stronger military pressure to discourage Houthi attacks. Since the Israelis started their campaign against the Gaza Strip, the Houthis have damaged at least 30 ships and sunk 2 under the auspices of support for the Palestinian people. An administration official told the Wall Street Journal that Central Command has been asked to prepare a broader list of potential targets, including specific militants, for possible strikes. Critics say that the request is time late and that more should have already been done to better protect the commercial shipping, including hitting larger weapon storage facilities, targeting Houthi leaders, and picking targets that would cripple their military to a greater degree. At the same time, U.S. intelligence agencies are warning that Russia might arm Houthi militants in Yemen with advanced anti-ship missiles in retaliation for the Biden administration's support for Ukrainian strikes inside Russia with U.S. weapons. The White House has launched a confidential push to try and stop Moscow from delivering the missiles involving a third country to try to persuade Russian President Vladimir Putin not to join Iran in providing weapons to the Houthis, according to U.S. officials who declined to identify the country. Middle East Eye, a London-based news site, reported last month that Russia had previously considered providing anti-ship cruise missiles to the Houthis, but was talked out of doing so by the Saudis. Since then, U.S. officials have seen continuing indications that Putin might yet provide the missiles using Iranian smuggling routes that have proved difficult for the U.S. and its NATO allies to cut off. 2 days after the Houthi drone strike on Tel Aviv, the Israelis took matters into their own hands, launching a massive airstrike against Yemen called Operation Long Arm. As reported by open-source intel on X, approximately 25 Israeli Air Force F-15s and F-35s, accompanied by airborne tankers, flew over 1,200 miles to strike 10 targets around the Hudaydah Port facility. The strike, which was executed in 8 waves during daylight, was the longest ever attempted by the Israeli Air Force. It destroyed fuel depots and a power station, inflicted major damage on the port, and created a power outage across the region. The fuel depot was chosen because it's a major node in the Iranian supply chain to the Houthi military, but also because the Israelis knew the fire would rage for days and be seen by locals for miles. While the Israeli Air Force hasn't said exactly what weapons were used during Operation Long Arm, this sort of mission is exactly why they procured the F-35, which they call the Adir, which is Hebrew for Mighty One. The 5th-generation fighters open architecture allows mission planners a lot of flexibility in that the jet can carry both GPS bombs like the JDAM as well as laser-guided GBUs for targets where a greater amount of precision is required, like bunker busting. The IDF reportedly has developed its own version of the JDAM, but it's not known if those were used during Long Arm. The Adir's inherent open architecture allows for precise tailoring against specific threat suites, and at the outset of the Gaza campaign, the United States provided what they call mission bricks to the Israelis, presumably designed to allow the Adirs to better penetrate the skies over neighboring countries, but also Iran. And speaking of Iran, Long Arm is also certainly an Israeli signal to Iran in terms of the range the strike covered. The oil facilities at Bandar Abbas and Karg Island, from where most of Iran's oil is exported, are obviously in Israel's sights. Meanwhile, as Prosperity Guardian continues, the U.S. Navy aircraft carrier that led the effort for nearly 8 months after the operation was created returned to its home port along with the other warships that comprise the strike group. During the deployment, those ships fired 155 Standard Series missiles and 135 Tomahawk cruise missiles in operations against the Houthi militants. Carrier Air Wing 3 aboard Ike launched another 60 air-to-air missiles and 420 air-to-surface munitions in the course of their operations in and around the Red Sea. Collectively, the Ike strike group used its various weapons to destroy a variety of Houthi aerial drones, missiles, uncrewed surface vessels, and undersea vehicles, and different kinds of targets ashore. Additionally, a female naval aviator became the first woman in U.S. military history to successfully execute an air-to-air engagement, downing an enemy craft in combat over the Red Sea. Her squadron, the VFA-32 Fighting Swordsman, flew over 3,000 combat hours and employed over 20 air-to-air missiles against Houthi one-way attack drones. Other firsts during Ike's cruise were a CAG-3 EA-18G Growler attached to Electronic Attack Squadron 130, the Zappers, bagged that airplane's first air-to-air kill, likely downing a Houthi drone. The Zappers also used the AGM-88E Advanced Anti-Radiation Guided Missile, also known as ARGM, for the first time in combat during strikes on western Yemen, including one that destroyed an Mi-24 Hind helicopter on the ground. The Eisenhower Strike Group has been replaced in the region by the Theodore Roosevelt Strike Group, which the Pentagon redirected from the Western Pacific to take up the presence mission until the USS Harry S. Truman Strike Group arrives on station from the East Coast. It's unclear exactly when that turnover will happen, although it could be sooner rather than later, as there are some signals that Truman's deployment has been moved up. That'll do it for this episode. More on this situation as the information becomes available, so if you're not already a subscriber, become one so you do not miss anything going forward. And in the meantime, I look forward to talking to you again very soon.